Davita from Truth Be Told podcast, of course. Welcome back, sports fans, to another episode of Truth Be Told podcast, where I'll be telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us, God. Now that the NFL is done with their little draft, I figure why not discuss drafting a little further? So this will be the second page in our relationship playbook. So if you haven't watched the first video regarding the relationship playbook, I suggest you do that now. As I said, this will be the second part of that, and you don't want to get ahead of yourself, okay? Don't be skipping pages. So make sure you go back and watch that first video on how to get your team to the championships. Okay, so if you haven't noticed by now, by drafting, of course, I mean in relationships, right? Everyone's out here trying to get drafted. So, what will make you the first round draft pick? Let's discuss, shall we? But before we discuss drafting for the current season, we need to discuss how you ended your last season or relationship. So, how did your last season end? Did you make it to the championships? Were you kept on by the team for another year and another season? Were you benched? Are you up to be traded? That is very important when going into this drafting season, okay? So I'm gonna need you to recognize where you went wrong in the last season, okay? Did you score enough touchdowns, okay? Were you playing your position to the best of your ability? Or were you just looking to score? Don't worry, I'll wait. So before we even think about getting drafted for this season, I'm going to need you to evaluate how your last season went with your last team, okay? And evaluate how you can be the best all-around player you can be so you can be the number one draft pick for this season. Another thing we need to evaluate before we even discuss getting drafted for this season is if you are ready to be drafted at all, or should you be sitting this season out? Not every season calls for our presence, okay? Sometimes you might be called into a season of isolation to ensure that you are your best self for self before you dedicate yourself to a team. So before we jump into relationships, the one thing that we need to do is ensure that we are whole ourselves, or as close to it as we can be, right? On every level, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. How are you performing? So, before we go any further, I would like to personally congratulate all the men who got drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2026. Congratulations and welcome to Steeler Nation, baby. Okay, so now that we got that out the way, let's go over some different ways you can ensure that you are a first round draft pick in this upcoming cuffing season, okay? The first thing everyone wants to know, whether male or female, is what are you bringing to the table? How can you be an asset to anyone's team? Don't worry, I'll wait. So let's go over your overall stats so we can assess what you bring to the team, shall we? So, where do you rank mentally? So, from a mental standpoint, in regards to relationships, are you open minded or closed minded? That's something you need to know when going into a team so that you can find the best team fit for you, right? The whole goal about this is finding the best team, person, or partnership that best aligns with you and who you truly are. So, it doesn't make sense to go into this new drafting season pretending to be something you're not, fluffing up those stats and buying cheat codes and doing different things to make it look like you're something that you're not. Okay. So honesty is the best policy. How do you rank mentally? How are your communication skills? Are you mentally ready to be in a relationship? Are you mentally prepared to be in love and, more importantly, loved by another person? Sometimes we think we are, but many times once we get into relationships, we come to understand, learn, and recognize that we truly aren't ready to be in a relationship. And many of us don't understand how to be loved, how to let someone in, and how to be vulnerable. So, are you in an open space where you can freely accept love and give love without judgment, without the past energies coming into play? Which leads me to the next question. Are you emotionally ready for another relationship? Are you emotionally ready to deal with another person and be in close proximity with someone? Okay. Because let's be clear, if your emotions aren't regulated, how on earth do you expect to add another person to that equation and expect that to go well? Okay. So if you're not in a good space with your emotional state, it would not be wise to sign yourself up to get drafted by a team and get into a relationship until you get yourself emotionally under control. Okay. As I mentioned, are you open to love and relationships at all? Or do you just want to be a part of a team? Many of us find ourselves not wanting to be alone. However, that doesn't mean you're ready for a relationship or to be a part of a team. Are you a team player? Can you handle the emotional load that comes with relationships? Are you still emotionally tied or tethered to past relationships? These are the things we seriously need to look at if you want to be the first round draft pick. Okay, so the next stat we need to evaluate is, how are you physically? Are you physically ready to be in a relationship? Are you in tip top shape to be on a team? Are you in the shape you would like to be in for this new season, for this new team? Consider how your physicality plays a part in your overall health and well being in a relationship. For instance, if you're not confident in how you look, you won't be any more confident in a relationship. And we all know the number one hindrance to having a healthy relationships is when those insecurities tend to creep in. So, are you in your best shape physically? Do you look the way you want to look? Do you dress the way you want to dress? Are you the person you want to be for you before you get into this relationship? Okay, how's that uniform looking? Okay, if you're not in that space, I suggest you get into that space. Become the person you want to be for yourself before entering yourself into this relationship or this drafting season. You want to come into this drafting season your most confident self. So let's work on all of our stats. Sometimes the problem is we're only focused on the physical appearance of ourselves and others, that we tend to neglect the other stats. That's why I started with those first. Okay. So let's make sure that you are working on all areas, specifically spiritually. Okay. I always save the best for last. Where do you rank spiritually? What type of connection do you have with some sort of spirituality? Where do you rank with spirituality? And more importantly, how important is spirituality within your life so you can accurately assess which team or partnership would be best for you? Because let's be clear, many of us have a spiritual life that we need to honor and recognize more. And oftentimes, when we go into relationships, this may be the one thing that we neglect to discuss, how important your religion is, your spirituality, or whatever practices you may take part in or believe in. So, you want to be clear. If you expect your partner to align with or have the same spiritual beliefs as you, that's important to get on the table to discuss immediately, okay? So before you sign that contract, you definitely want to know, is this the best person to come into partnership for yourself and your personal needs, specifically with spirituality? Too often we see people who take a hard stance on religion or practices and belief systems, but they don't communicate that early enough in advance for the other person to make an informed decision. So, again, are you open minded with religion, spirituality, different people's beliefs and practices? Or does the person you're coming into relationship with need to practice or believe the same faith as you? These are all the things we need to take into consideration when we're trying to get drafted. As I said, you can't just focus on the physical. I mean, unless you're just trying to look good enough to score. So the next question is, what sets you apart from the other contenders in the game trying to get drafted? How do you rank against the other contenders? As I said, you have to work on the different stats accordingly. So you may fare well in one area, but need a little more work in the other areas, and there is no problem with that. As I mentioned in the beginning, the whole point of this is to get to understand yourself and bring your most honest representative to the table to be drafted. So, one thing that could definitely set you apart from the other contenders is being open minded enough to understand that we all have work to do. The best thing you can always do in any situation, whether single or in a relationship, is take accountability for self and how you are showing up for yourself or in your partnerships. And let's be clear, we all know one thing for sure. Communication is key regardless of any situation you find yourself in business, partnerships, whatever have you. So, where do you rank on the communication scale? How are you communicating with others? Do you effectively communicate your wants and needs with a partner? Are you vulnerable enough to communicate your wants and needs with a partner? If not, you might need to sit this drafting season out and go sit on the bench and heal, beloved, okay? So, we talked about some of the stats that come into play in relationships, but let's go over a few more just to be on the safe side, okay? Are you even a team player? Do you work well with others, or do you need to work on that? How are you as a parent, a child, even a team member at work? All those things come into play, and you best believe that people that are looking to date you are looking at all those different aspects of you, okay? Remember, you can't neglect your priorities either just to be seen on the field to get drafted. That's what I mean. You have to take serious inventory of your life to ensure that you are in the best position possible to be even considered for drafting into a relationship. At the end of the day, especially on the dating scene, we're all ranking each other, basically judging a book by its cover. So you want to ensure that you are presenting yourself in the best way possible. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, you don't want to buy any cheat codes to ensure that you look the part and not actually be the person you're pretending to be. And as I mentioned briefly in the beginning, you want to get clear on the type of person, partnership, and team you would like to be drafted onto. For instance, it doesn't help you to only be looking for a partner that looks good enough to score. You want someone who you can go the distance with, who you can spend season after season with to hopefully make it to the Super Bowl and get that championship ring, right? That is the goal. So be clear about your goals, values, morals, expectations, and everything you might expect within another person or team you wish to be drafted onto. Because as we know, honesty is definitely the best policy. You want to build a long lasting team that wins season after season after season after season, right? Too many of us are just looking to score, saying that we want a relationship, when at the end of the day, we just want the most points and we're not really looking to make it to the Super Bowl to get that championship ring. You know what they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So you need to evaluate whether you want to go fast or far. And understand that when you are in the season drafting for your team, you want to draft the most valuable player and not just someone who will be a trophy. So I hope this video and information I provided will be most helpful to you in drafting for the upcoming cuffing season. And remember, I'm just throwing things out there, so catch what you can. But you know I'm going to tell you the truth, right? So that's the end of this message for our second page in our relationship playbook. Stay tuned for our next episode, which will include in-game plays. And before we go, I would like to wish the Steelers good luck on their upcoming season. And we can't wait until you guys bring home that next championship ring for Steeler Nation, baby. And if you haven't liked this video or subscribed to the channel, I mean, what are you waiting for? Subscribe so you can stay in tune with our vibe over here, okay? And as I always say, truth without love is brutality. Love without truth is hypocrisy. And as we know, fools multiply when wise men or women are silent. So we mustn't be silent. We must tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even when it hurts. Until next time, peace, y'all.